Let's talk about target-focused shooting. Back in the day, iron sights, these old antiques, I think, there's a lot of schools of thought that talked about focus on your front sight, let it surprise you, that kind of stuff. And honestly, still a lot of places talk about front sight focus with irons. And then with the invention of red dots, now we're able to do target focus or threat focus. We couldn't do that previously, but now red dots allow that. I don't really agree with any of those statements so far, so I just kind of want to talk through it. So the issue I have with sight-focused shooting, whether it's a red dot because you can stare at your red dot or stare at your front sight, is you lose the ability to track the target behind you. So, a broad stroke, you have your iron sights, something, I'll try to line up with the camera a little bit if I can. I'm terrible at this. Something like this, and you could do like, yes, if the sights are like this, if they're obviously not lined up. So yes, I could see if they're through the notch, but then if I focus on the front sight's going to be sharpened in focus. The target's going to be blurry. So the problem with that when shooting for like sport shooting style, or if it's USPSA style, brown cardboard targets, if you're staring at the front sight, you'll just register brown behind the sight because this is sharpened in focus, and you'll register that as good and fire. So often that results in hits going in a spot you don't want. Maybe they cluster wrong in the wrong section of the target, or if you're moving, you just keep tracking brown behind the sight and follow, which could either be shots dragging one way or the other, or if you're shooting rapid fire, bill drill type of shooting and staring at your front sight, the hits will just climb up the target. You'll keep registering brown behind the sight and just keep firing. So a lot of problems with that. Talking through an iron sight first, if I'm going to exaggerate, but if the iron sights are this type of awareness, obviously I'll be aware of that regardless if I'm target focused or sight focused. For all of iron sight shooting, I want to be target focused. Not delusional, and I know I'm going to accidentally stare at the front sight sometimes where I don't mean to. Hopefully it'll make me irritated and upset, and I'll stop doing it or catch myself doing it. But regardless if the target's at 5 yards or 50 yards, head box, an open target, close, easy target, whatever, all of those I want to do target focus shooting. The reason for that is I want to have the spot I want to hit. Look at I'll say the size of a coin, maybe graduating the size of your fist, depending on how big the target is. So if it's at 5 meters, I want something the size of just a small little, like an ant size, something that I'm looking exactly where I want to stack bullets. Obviously, you can't see an area that small at 50 meters, so maybe it's the size of your fist, palm, something like that. But I'm looking to a really small area where I want to drive the bullets. If my focus is back on the sight, I'm not going to be able to do that. A bullseye way of kind of refining that would be to go bounce your vision from the sight, pull it back to the target, target, sight, sight, target, target, sight. Keep going back and forth while you gradually apply the pressure. At some point, then the shot breaks. For any practical style shooting or something where speeds, you need to have some urgency behind your shooting, that's just going to be too slow. So if it was a head box target or something, maybe you could bounce your vision a little bit, but even for that 50-meter shooting or the head box target, I would rather just focus on this point I want to hit, have my sights blurry, but still be aware of the alignment. The most popular sight picture is something like this, where it's a black rear sight and a fiber optic front, but obviously maybe you have a night sight front, a black rear, or different colors, or whatever. I prefer having the front sight something brighter that'll catch my focus, and the plain black rear sight just makes the front sight stand out that much more and be less confusing. So again, the target's sharp and in focus. My sights, I'm aware of them, but I'm not staring at them and focusing on them, making them crystal clear. So by doing that, I'm able to look at the point I want to hit, tell if I need to make an adjustment to my sights, or more importantly, when it's time to shoot, when my sights are where I'm looking. If I'm looking at the point and I see my sights come over, once they're in alignment and I see the aiming scheme I want, I'll be ready to fire, and I'll be able to pinpoint the spot I'm sending the shots to, opposed to bouncing my vision back to the sight. Now, fast forward to red dots. The future is now. Basically, everything I just said with the iron sights is 100% the same with this. you can bring your vision back and stare at the dot. So all the same issues happen with fundamentals as far as hits going in the wrong spot, climbing up the target, clustering at the wrong spot, dragging on or off, all those kind of things. So with the issue now is that you don't want to stare at the sight is what I'll suggest. And I'll give you a few tips that will help with that. With the iron sight, you notice I've got black Sharpie. I put over the fiber, which just dulls it a little bit. That makes me just a little bit less tempted to stare at it. It'll still happen, and I'll be irritated when it happens. But this way, I still see the sight. This is green. I still see it glowing green, but I keep my target sharp and in focus and still be aware of that glowing green, hopefully not shifting my vision back to stare at it. With a red dot, a couple things. You can try the occlusion game, which really triggers some people, and I don't even know why, where you just put tape over the muzzle end of it. Basically, when you look through the scope, you'll see the backer. I prefer black electrical tape just because it stops you from staring through, but also gives your red dot something to really stand out against. And if it's very bright outside, sometimes that can be a real helpful tool also. Anyway, so black tape. So one eye will be looking through that, seeing the dot on the tape. The other eye is just seeing everything else. Your brain puts the two together, and it's not going to stop you from staring at the sight. It'll just be more apparent if you do. And it's a good training aid. So I'm not saying it's something you want to do forever, but I shot a whole season with that on, and it didn't hurt me or any issues like that. The other thing I think is a good idea is just changing the dot brightness. So changing the brightness of your dot down will sometimes make you less likely to stare at it, just because if you're shooting, you see this bouncing ball in front of your face and it's super bright, you'll be more likely to catch your attention. If you turn the brightness down a little bit, it may be easier to stay target focused and just be aware of that dot bouncing without shifting your vision to it, watching that, and then losing, the spot that you want to look at on the target to send the bullets. So anyway, in a broad stroke, that's why target focused shooting is what I do with iron sight or optic, regardless of difficulty or distance. So again, if it's iron sights and it's a 50-meter target, I'm still going to be doing target focus. I'll just be more careful about aligning the sights peripherally, but I don't have to stare at them to align them. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions, drop them below.